Commander Vextai stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the scanner display with cold satisfaction. His long, scaled fingers traced across the control panel as he studied the readings. 3 days of hunting had finally paid off. The human cargo ship was right where his intelligence sources said it would be. The ship was called the Ironclad Wanderer. It looked like every other human freight vessel Vextai had seen in the outer star systems. Big, slow, and ugly. The humans built their ships like floating metal boxes with engines stuck on the back. No style, no grace. Just crude metal welded together in the most basic way possible. Vextai's species. Zephyrians knew how to build proper ships. Their vessels were sleek and fast, like silver fish swimming through space. Every line was perfect. Every weapon placement was planned for maximum effect. Zephyrians had been raiding ships in this part of space for over 300 years. They knew their business. "Commander," said his second officer, Kasara. Her voice was smooth and confident. "All ships are in position. The humans have no escape route." Vextai nodded. 12 Zephyrian ships surrounded the human vessel in a perfect sphere. Each ship was positioned to cover any possible escape vector. If the humans tried to run, they would fly straight into Zephyrian weapons. If they tried to fight, they would be outnumbered 12-1. The human ship continued on its course toward the jump point. Its engines glowed with that harsh blue light that human technology always produced. Everything about human engineering was loud and rough. They used brute force where other species used elegance. They burned fuel where others conserved energy. They were new to space travel, and it showed in every rivet of their crude ships. Vextai had raided human vessels 6 times before. Each raid had been easy. The humans always tried to talk first. They would beg and plead and offer deals. When that failed, they would try to run. When running failed, they would surrender. It was almost boring how predictable they were. This ship was carrying rare metals from the mining colonies near Kepler Station. The intelligence report was very clear about the cargo manifest. Platinum, iridium, and compressed fusion cores. Enough valuable material to keep Vextai's fleet supplied for months. The humans were mining these materials to build more of their ugly cities on dead worlds. They always needed more metal, more fuel, more resources to feed their growing empire. The Zephyrians had different priorities. They took what they needed and left the hard work to others. Why dig metals from asteroid fields when you could simply take them from those foolish enough to do the digging? It was the natural order of things. The strong took from the weak. The smart took from the stupid. "Distance to target?" Vextai asked. 50,000 kilometers in closing, Kasara replied. They still show no sign of detecting our approach. This was typical. Human sensor technology was basic compared to Zephyrian stealth systems. The ironclad Wanderer probably thought it was alone in this empty stretch of space. Its crew was likely relaxing, maybe playing their crude human games or eating their awful human food. They had no idea that death was closing in around them. Vextai allowed himself a moment to appreciate the beauty of the trap. His ships had been tracking the human vessel for 3 days, staying just outside sensor range. They had waited for the perfect moment, when the ship was far from any help and close to the jump point where cargo haulers always slowed down to prepare their navigation computers. The ironclad Wanderer was typical of human merchant ships. It was about 800 meters long and 200 meters wide. Most of that space was cargo holds filled with metal containers. The crew section was small, probably housing no more than 30 humans. The ship had basic defensive shields and maybe a few small weapons for scaring off pirates, but Vextai was not a simple pirate. He commanded a full battle squadron of the Zephyrian Defense Force. His ships carried military-grade weapons and the best technology his people could build. Each of his vessels could destroy the human ship with a single coordinated attack. The only reason he did not simply blow it apart was that destroyed cargo was worthless cargo. "Communications ready, Commander," reported his tactical officer. "Should we broadcast the surrender demand?" "Not yet," Vextai said. Let them get closer to the jump point first. I want them to think they almost escaped. It was a psychological tactic that always worked. When prey thought they were almost safe, they became more cooperative when that safety was suddenly taken away. The humans would be preparing to jump to hyperspace, thinking about reaching their destination safely. Then 12 Zephyrian warships would suddenly appear around them, and their hope would turn to despair. Vextai had been raiding in this sector for 15 years. He knew every trick, every tactic that worked on different species. The Altarians fought like mad animals until they were overwhelmed. The Centauri always tried to buy their way out with credits or information. The Andromedans usually surrendered immediately and begged for mercy. Humans were different from all of them, but not in any way that mattered. They were emotional creatures who made decisions based on feelings rather than logic. They valued individual lives over group survival. They had strange ideas about honor and fairness that made them weak in real combat situations. "Commander," Kisara said, her voice carrying a note of surprise. "The human ship is changing course." Vextai looked at the display. The ironclad Wanderer had indeed altered its heading slightly. Instead of flying straight toward the jump point, it was now angling toward a nearby asteroid field. The change was small, maybe 5 degrees, but it was definitely intentional. "Have they detected us?" the tactical officer asked. "Impossible." Vextai replied, "Our stealth systems are active. Even if they had military-grade sensors, they could not penetrate our cloaking fields." But something was making the humans nervous. Perhaps they had intercepted some stray signal from one of his ships. Perhaps their primitive computers had noticed some tiny gravitational anomaly. It did not matter. The trap was already closing. "Oh, ships, this is command," Vextai spoke into his communicator. "Target is attempting evasive maneuvers. Close to attack formation. Prepare to decloak on my signal." The response came back immediately from all 11 ship commanders. They were ready. They had been ready for hours. The Zephyrian fleet was like a perfectly tuned instrument, each ship playing its part in the deadly symphony of war. The human ship was still trying to reach the asteroid field. Perhaps they thought they could hide among the rocks until help arrived. It was a foolish plan. Vextai's ships could easily follow them into the asteroids, and no help was coming. The nearest human patrol was days away from this location. "Distance to target now 30,000 kilometers, Kisara reported. "They are increasing speed." Vextai smiled, showing his sharp teeth. The humans were starting to panic. Good. Panicked. Prey made more mistakes. They would try some desperate maneuver that would only make the capture easier. The ironclad Wanderer was pushing its engines harder now. The blue glow from its thrusters had become brighter and more intense. Human engines always ran hot when they were stressed. It was another sign of their crude technology. They built everything to barely handle normal operations, with no safety margins for emergencies. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the human vessel." "Already?" Vextai was surprised. They usually waited until after the ships decloaked to start talking. "What are they saying?" "It appears to be an automated distress signal, Commander. They are broadcasting their position and requesting assistance." This was interesting. The humans were calling for help before they even knew they were being attacked. Either their sensors were better than expected, or they were more paranoid. Than most species, it did not matter. The signal would take hours to reach the nearest human outpost, and the battle would be over in minutes. "Should we jam their communications?" Kisara asked. "No," Vextai decided. "Let them waste power on useless signals. It will drain their systems and make them easier to disable." The human ship was now clearly running for the asteroid field. Its course changes were becoming more frequent and more desperate. Whatever had alerted them to danger, they knew they were in serious trouble. But they were still flying straight into the trap. Vextai had positioned 2 of his fastest ships near the asteroid field hours ago. The humans would find more enemies waiting for them instead of safety. It was a classic pincer movement that had worked against dozens of other vessels. 20,000 kilometers, Kisara announced. They are within optimal firing range. All ships, decloak and assume attack formation, Vexthai commanded. Begin jamming their engines and weapons. Prepare to broadcast surrender terms. Space. Around the ironclad Wanderer suddenly filled with silver shapes as 12 Zephyrian warships dropped their stealth fields. The human ship was completely surrounded, caught in a perfect sphere of enemy vessels. Each Zephyrian ship was smaller than the human cargo hauler, but their weapons were far more powerful. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The human ship stopped accelerating and began turning in confused circles as if the crew could not decide which direction to run. Its communications array started broadcasting on multiple frequencies at once, sending out panicked messages in several different human languages. Perfect, Vexthai said with satisfaction. Open a channel to the human vessel. Let us see how quickly they surrender. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the human ship. It was cramped and poorly lit, with exposed cables and pipes running along the walls. Several humans were visible, all wearing simple work clothes rather than military uniforms. They looked exactly like what they were supposed to be, frightened merchants caught in a trap they could not escape. But there was something in their eyes that Vexthai had not expected to see. Instead of fear or despair, he saw something that looked almost like determination. One of the humans, a female with short brown hair, stepped forward to face the screen. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the merchant vessel Ironclad Wanderer," she said in clear, calm English. "We are carrying humanitarian supplies to the Kepler colonies. Stand down and let us pass." Vexthai laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. Humanitarian supplies. The humans always claimed to be carrying medicine or food for refugees when they were caught. As if anyone would believe that rare metals were humanitarian aid. "I am Commander Vexthai of the Zephyrian Defense Force," he replied, letting his translator convert the words into human speech. "You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your vessel." The human captain looked at him for a long moment without speaking. There was something strange in her expression, something that did not look like fear or even anger. If Vexthai had to put a name to it, he would have called it disappointment. "I really hoped we could avoid this," Captain Chun said quietly, speaking to someone off-screen rather than to him. "All crew, this is the captain. Battle stations, activate Protocol 7. Vexthai felt a chill run down his spine. Those words did not sound like surrender. They sounded like a declaration of war. The words hung in space like a death sentence. Protocol 7. Commander Vexthai had raided dozens of species across the galaxy, but he had never heard any cargo ship captain use terms like that. Protocols were military language. Merchant vessels did not have battle protocols. Captain Chun turned away from the communication screen to address her crew. Vexthai could see several humans moving with sudden purpose behind her. They were not panicking or crying as he expected. Instead, they moved with the quick, efficient motions of trained soldiers. "What is Protocol 7? Kasara asked quietly from her position at the sensor station. "I do not know," Vexthai admitted, "but it does not sound like surrender." On the human ship's bridge, Captain Chun was giving orders in a calm, clear voice. "Engineering, bring the fusion reactors to full power. Weapons, start the targeting computers. Navigation, plot an escape course through the asteroid field. Medical, prepare for casualties." Vexthai felt his confidence waver slightly. These humans were not acting like frightened merchants. They were acting like experienced warriors preparing for battle. But that was impossible. The intelligence reports were clear. The Ironclad Wanderer was a simple cargo hauler with a civilian crew. "Commander," his tactical officer said, "should we begin jamming their systems?" "Do it," Vexthai ordered. "Disable their engines and weapons, make them helpless." The Zephyrian ships began broadcasting powerful electromagnetic pulses designed to overload human computer systems. It was a standard tactic that worked on most species. Their primitive electronics would shut down, leaving them drifting in space like a dead whale, but the human ship kept moving. Its engines continued to burn at full power, and its communication systems kept working normally. The jamming signals seemed to have no effect at all. Impossible, Kasara breathed. Their systems should be completely offline by now. Maybe human technology is more advanced than we thought, the tactical officer suggested. Vexthai shook his head. He had seen human ships torn apart by Zephyrian weapons before. Their technology was crude and primitive. There had to be another explanation. On the main screen, Captain Chun was still giving orders to her crew. She seemed completely calm despite being surrounded by 12 warships. Her voice never rose above normal conversation level, and her hands remained steady as she worked at her control station. "All stations report ready, Captain," a male voice said from somewhere off-screen. "Very good," Chun replied. "Remember, we are not the aggressors here, but we will defend ourselves and our cargo with everything we have. These supplies are needed by the colonies, and we will not let pirates steal them." Vexthai opened the communication channel again. "Captain Chun, this is your final warning. Surrender now, or we will open fire. You cannot fight 12 ships with one cargo hauler." The human captain looked directly at him through the screen. Her brown eyes were completely steady, showing no fear at all. "Commander Vexthai, I will make you a counteroffer. Leave now, and no one has to die today. Continue this attack, and you will regret it." The Zephyrian bridge fell silent. No cargo ship captain had ever threatened a Zephyrian battle squadron before. It was either the bravest thing Vexthai had ever heard or the most foolish. "You cannot be serious," he said. "You have one ship. I have 12. You have civilian weapons. I have military-grade plasma cannons. This is not a fight you can win." Captain Chun smiled, but it was not a happy expression. "Commander, you are making the same mistake that many others have made. You are judging us by our appearance rather than our capabilities." As she spoke, something strange began happening to the human ship. The ironclad Wanderer started to change shape. Panels along its hull began sliding apart, revealing hidden compartments underneath. What had looked like simple cargo containers were transforming into something completely different. "What in the void ... Kesara whispered. "The cargo containers were opening like metal flowers. Inside each one was a weapon turret. Not the small defensive guns that merchant ships usually carried, but massive military cannons that looked like they belonged on a battleship. Dozens of them were emerging from concealment all along the ship's hull, but that was not the most shocking transformation. The ship's main hull was changing too. Armor plating was sliding into new positions, creating overlapping protective layers. The simple cargo hauler was becoming a fortress bristling with weapons. "Impossible," Vexthai said. "How did our intelligence miss this?" "Because we designed it to be missed," Captain Chun replied calmly. "The ironclad Wanderer is not just a cargo ship, Commander. She is a Q-ship. A warship disguised as a merchant vessel." The term sent a chill through Vexthai's blood. He had heard of Q-ships in historical records. Some species had used them centuries ago as traps for pirates and raiders, but no one had seen an active Q-ship in over 200 years. "All Zephyrian vessels," he broadcast on the fleet channel, "the target is not what it appears to be. Prepare for immediate attack. Do not let them complete their transformation." But it was already too late. The ironclad Wanderer had finished changing from merchant ship to warship in less than 2 minutes. It now looked like a completely different vessel. Instead of a harmless cargo hauler, it was clearly a military ship designed for one purpose: killing other ships. "This is impossible," the tactical officer said. "Our sensors showed a civilian vessel. There were no weapon signatures, no military power readings." "Humans are clever," Captain Chun said, still visible on the communication screen. "We learned a long time ago that the best way to survive is to make our enemies underestimate us. You saw what you expected to see because that is what we wanted you to see." The human ship began moving again, but now it moved differently. Instead of the clumsy flight pattern of a cargo hauler, it moved with the grace and purpose of a warship. Its engines, no longer disguised, produced a much brighter and more powerful thrust signature. How many crew do you actually have? Vextai asked, dreading the answer. Enough, Chun replied. The ironclad wanderer carries a full marine company in addition to her regular crew. We have been hunting pirates in this sector for 3 months. You just made yourselves our primary target. A full marine company meant at least 200 soldiers, not the 30 civilians that intelligence had reported. The humans had been planning this trap for months, waiting for a major pirate fleet to attack them. Vexthai's squadron had walked straight into a carefully prepared ambush. You are still outnumbered 12-1, he said, trying to maintain his confidence. Numbers are not everything, Commander, Captain Chun replied. Especially when the enemy is not prepared for what they are about to face. The human ship's weapon turrets were now fully deployed and tracking targets. Vexthai could see dozens of gun barrels pointed at his ships. Each turret was larger than anything a merchant vessel should carry. They looked like the main guns from human battleships. All ships, attack pattern 7, Vexthai ordered. Coordinated strike on the human vessel. Disable their engines first, then their weapons. The Zephyrian fleet began moving into attack formation. They were still 12 ships against 1, coup ship or not. Their combined firepower should be enough to overwhelm any single vessel, no matter how well armed. But as his ships moved into position, Vexthai noticed something disturbing. The human ship was not trying to run anymore. Instead, it was turning to face his fleet directly. Captain Chang was actually seeking combat with 12 warships. Commander, Cassara said, her voice tight. With worry, I am reading massive power buildups from the human vessel. Their weapons are charging to full capacity. How massive? Vexthai asked. Sir, their power output is reading higher than our entire squadron combined. This was impossible. No single ship could generate that much energy. The readings had to be wrong. But even as he watched, the human ship's hull began to glow with heat from the enormous power flowing through its systems. What kind of reactor are they using? A tactical officer asked. Before anyone could answer, Captain Chun's voice came over the communication channel one last time. Commander Vexthai, this is your final chance. Withdraw your fleet now, and we will let you leave alive. Continue this attack, and we will defend ourselves with lethal force. Vexthai looked at his tactical display. 12 Zephyrian warships surrounded one human vessel. His ships were faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with proven weapons. The humans might have surprised him with their disguise, but they were still just one ship against his entire squadron. Negative, Captain Chun, he replied. We did not come this far to be frightened away by human tricks. All ships, open fire. The space between the fleets erupted in light as 12 Zephyrian ships fired simultaneously. Plasma beams and particle cannons sent streams of deadly energy toward the human Q ship. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The energy weapons struck the ironclad wanderer's hull and simply disappeared. The ship's shields absorbed the entire barrage without even flickering. The massive power generators that Cassara had detected were feeding defensive systems that could handle anything the Zephyrians could throw at them. Shields holding at 98%, Captain Chun reported to her crew, her voice still calm. Return fire, all batteries, full spread. Show them what human engineering can really do. The human ship's response was immediate and devastating. Every weapon turret fired at once, sending a wall of projectiles toward the Zephyrian fleet. But these were not energy weapons like the Zephyrians used. They were solid metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. The first salvos struck 3 Zephyrian ships before they could react. The kinetic rounds punched through their shields like they were not even there, tearing massive holes in their hulls. One ship exploded immediately as the projectiles hit its fuel storage tanks. Evasive maneuvers, Vexthai shouted. All ships, scatter formation. But the human ship was already firing again. The turrets rotated with mechanical precision, tracking the fleeing Zephyrian vessels. More solid rounds filled space, each one guided by advanced targeting computers that could predict exactly where each enemy ship would be. How are they doing this? Kasara asked in horror as another Zephyrian ship took critical damage. Kinetic weapons should not be this accurate at long range. Because they are not just kinetic weapons, Captain Chen's voice came over the open channel. Each projectile has its own guidance system and fusion warhead. We call them smart rounds. They do not miss, and they do not stop until they hit their target. Vexthai watched in growing terror as his perfect ambush turned into a massacre. The humans were not just fighting back. They were winning. Commander Vexthai watched his fleet dying around him, and felt something he had never experienced before in 15 years of raiding, pure terror. 3 of his ships were already dead or dying, and the human vessel showed no signs of slowing. Its relentless attack, the ironclad wanderer moved through space like a living predator. Every few seconds, another group of guided projectiles erupted from its weapon turrets. Each round tracked its target with mechanical determination, adjusting course to follow evasive maneuvers. When they hit, they exploded with the force of small nuclear weapons. "Status report," Vexthai demanded, his voice cracking slightly. "The blade of vengeance is gone," Kasara reported, her normally steady voice shaking. "The Silver Wind has lost main power and is drifting. The Star Hunter reports critical damage to engines and weapons. 3 ships out of 12 destroyed, or disabled in less than 5 minutes. This was not a battle. It was an execution. All remaining ships, focus fire on their weapon turrets," Vexthai ordered. "If we can disable their guns, we can still win this." His remaining 9 ships concentrated their plasma cannons on the human vessel's weapons. Brilliant beams of energy struck the turrets again and again. But the weapons were protected by the same incredible shields that covered the rest of the ship. The plasma simply dispersed harmlessly across the defensive barriers. "Their shields are not weakening," the tactical officer reported. "If anything, they seem to be getting stronger." This was impossible. No shield system could maintain full power under sustained fire from 9 warships. The energy requirements alone should have overwhelmed any reactor system. But the human ship kept fighting as if the Zephyrian attacks were nothing more than gentle rain. Captain Chen's voice came over the communication channel again. She still sounded completely calm, as if discussing the weather rather than commanding a ship in mortal combat. "All turrets concentrate fire on the command vessels. Take out their leadership first." The human weapons turned toward Vexthai's flagship and 2 other command ships. A storm of guided projectiles filled the space between them. Vexthai felt his ship shake as the rounds impacted their shields. Then the barriers failed, and metal death began tearing through his hull. "Emergency power to shields!" he shouted. "Damage control teams to Deck 7, but the human rounds kept coming. They did not fire in simple patterns like normal weapons. Instead, they came in waves designed to overwhelm defensive systems. First, smaller rounds would weaken the shields. Then larger projectiles would punch through the weakened barriers. Finally, the fusion warheads would detonate inside the target ship. It was a carefully planned destruction sequence that showed years of combat experience and tactical thinking. These humans were not lucky amateurs. They were professional soldiers who knew exactly how to kill enemy ships. "Hull breach on Deck 7, came the report from damage control. "We have lost life support to sections 12 through 15. Casualties are mounting." Vexthai looked at his tactical display and saw that 2 more of his ships had gone dark. The human vessel was picking them off one by one with methodical precision. In 10 minutes of combat, he had lost 5 ships out of 12. Half his fleet was gone. "Commander," Kasara said quietly, "perhaps we should consider retreat." The word hit Vexthai like a physical blow. Retreat. In 15 years of raiding, he had never retreated from anything. The Zephyrian Defense Force did not run from merchant ships and cargo haulers. But this was no ordinary merchant vessel. "Sir," the communications officer said, "the Star Hunter is requesting permission to withdraw. They have lost main engines and most of their weapons." "Denied," Vexthai snapped. "We do not abandon our squadron mates." But even as he said it, he wondered if staying was just throwing away more lives. The human ship was not fighting like any vessel he had ever encountered. It was fighting like something that had been designed specifically to kill Zephyrian raiders. On the main screen, he could see the ironclad Wanderer continuing its deadly work. The ship moved with surprising speed for something so large. Its engines burned with incredible brightness, providing power for both movement and weapons. Every few seconds, another volley of guided rounds would streak toward his remaining ships, but it was not just the weapons that horrified him. It was the way the humans fought. They showed no mercy, no hesitation, no fear. They targeted the most dangerous ships first, then worked their way down to the weakest. They coordinated their fire to maximize damage and minimize their enemy's ability to respond. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to be enjoying it. "Target the Void Reaper next," Captain Chun ordered her crew. "Their plasma cannons are still functional. Take out their main turret, then disable their engines." The Void Reaper was one of Vexthai's fastest ships, commanded by his most experienced captain. It immediately began evasive maneuvers, using every trick in the Zephyrian tactical manual. The ship rolled, dove, and twisted through space like a fish avoiding a predator. It made no difference. The human-guided rounds adjusted their courses to match every evasive move. They struck the Void Reaper's main weapon turret with surgical precision, destroying it completely. Then they moved on to the engine section, methodically tearing apart the propulsion systems. "This is Captain Serco of the Void Reaper," came a panicked voice over the fleet channel. "We are dead in space. Engines destroyed, weapons offline. Requesting immediate assistance." But what assistance could Vexthai provide? His own ship was barely surviving the human onslaught. Every few minutes, more guided rounds would slam into his hull, each impact bringing them closer to total destruction. "Commander," Cassara said, "urgently, I am detecting something new from the human vessel." "What now?" Vexthai asked, dreading the answer. "They are launching small craft. Dozens of them." On the tactical display, Vexthai saw points of light separating from the ironclad Wanderer. At first, he thought they were escape pods. Perhaps the humans were finally ready to abandon their ship. But the small craft began moving toward his fleet with obvious hostile intent. "Those are not escape pods," the tactical officer said. "They appear to be ... missiles, very large missiles." Each missile was the size of a small fighter craft. They moved under their own power, accelerating toward the Zephyrian ships with single-minded purpose. Unlike the guided rounds, these weapons were large enough to carry massive warheads. "Point defense systems, engage the incoming missiles," Vexthai ordered. His remaining ships began firing their defensive weapons at the approaching missiles. Laser cannons and particle beams lanced out to intercept the human weapons. Several missiles exploded under the concentrated fire, but many more kept coming. The first missile reached the crippled Star Hunter. The weapon struck the Zephyrian ship's hull and detonated with the force of a small star. The entire vessel simply vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. Where there had been a warship, now there was only expanding gas and debris. "What kind of weapons are those?" Cassara whispered. More missiles found their targets. The Serpent's Fang took direct hits and broke apart like a child's toy. The Night Stalker managed to destroy 3 missiles with point defense fire, but the 4th one got through and tore off the ship's entire bow section. In less than 20 minutes of combat, Vexthai had lost 8 ships out of 12. His perfect squadron was being systematically destroyed by a single human vessel that should have been an easy target. "All ships, emergency retreat," he finally ordered, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. "Jump to hyperspace immediately." "Sir," the tactical officer said, "the Star Drinker and the Void Spear cannot jump." Their hyperspace drives were damaged. Vexthai looked at the tactical display and saw that 2 of his remaining ships were indeed unable to escape. They were trapped in normal space with a human warship that showed no signs of mercy. "This is Captain Chun," came the human voice over the communication channel. "To any Zephyrian vessels attempting to retreat, you have 30 seconds to surrender before we destroy you. This is your only warning, 30 seconds. The humans were giving them 30 seconds to decide between death and surrender. It was more mercy than Vextai had ever shown to his own victims, but it felt like the ultimate humiliation. "Commander," came Captain Raltheus' voice from the Star Drinker, "we cannot escape. Our hyperspace drive is completely destroyed." Vextai closed his eyes for a moment. 2 of his ships, 2 crews. Dozens of Zephyrian warriors who had followed him into this disaster. "Surrender," he said quietly. "Sir?" Kasara asked. I said. "Surrender," Vextai shouted. "Signal the Star Drinker and Void Spear to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded. Save what lives we can." It was the hardest decision he had ever made, but watching his entire fleet die for nothing would be even harder. On the main screen, the ironclad Wanderer continued to drift through the debris field of destroyed Zephyrian ships. Its weapons were still tracking his remaining vessels, ready to fire at any sign of resistance. The human ship looked completely undamaged despite 20 minutes of concentrated fire from 12 warships. "This is Captain Chun," the human voice said. "We accept your surrender. Power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any attempt to resist will result in immediate destruction." Vextai gave the orders that ended his career and his pride. His remaining ships shut down their weapons and waited for the humans to claim their victory. But as he watched the human boarding craft launch from the ironclad Wanderer, one thought kept running through his mind. This had not been a battle between pirates and merchants. This had been a carefully planned hunt, and the Zephyrians had been the prey from the very beginning. The humans had not just fought back. They had been waiting for this fight. They had wanted it. And now Vextai understood with crystal clarity that his species had made a terrible mistake. They had awakened, something that the galaxy was not prepared to face. The human boarding shuttles moved through space like predatory birds approaching wounded prey. Commander Vextai watched them close in on his crippled ships and felt the weight of complete defeat pressing down on his shoulders. In 25 years of military service, he had never imagined surrendering to a single enemy vessel, but the ironclad Wanderer was no ordinary ship. Even now, with the battle essentially over, its weapon turrets continued to track every movement of the surviving Zephyrian vessels. The message was clear. Any attempt at resistance would result in immediate annihilation. "Commander," Kasara said quietly, "the human boarding shuttles are requesting docking permission from the Star Drinker and Void Spear." "Grant it," Vextai replied. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. "Order both ships to cooperate fully with the human marines." Through his ship's sensors, he watched the boarding process begin. The human shuttles were larger than typical boarding craft, and they moved with mechanical precision. Each one carried what appeared to be a full squad of soldiers in advanced combat armor. The first shuttle docked with the Star Drinker. Within minutes, reports began coming in over the fleet communication channel. The human marines were moving through the ship with professional efficiency, securing key areas and rounding up the Zephyrian crew. "This is Captain Ralthi," came a defeated voice from the Star Drinker. "The humans have taken control of the bridge. They are ... they are treating our wounded." This surprised Vextai. In his experience, most species killed or enslaved captured enemies. The idea of treating enemy wounded was foreign to Zephyrian military doctrine. It was seen as a waste of resources that could be better used elsewhere. "What are their demands?" Vextai asked. "They want a complete crew manifest and cargo inventory," Ralthi replied. "They are also asking about other Zephyrian operations in this sector. They seem very interested in our base locations." Of course they were. The humans were not just defending themselves from this one attack. They were gathering intelligence for future operations against Zephyrian raiders. This single battle was part of a larger campaign. Captain Chin's voice came over the main communication channel. "Commander Vextai, this is Captain Chun. I need to speak with you directly." Vextai straightened his uniform and activated the video link. Captain Chun appeared on his main screen, standing on what was clearly the bridge of the ironclad Wanderer. Behind her, he could see human crew members working at their stations with calm efficiency. "What do you want?" he asked. I want to make something very clear to you, Chun replied. This was not a random encounter. We have been hunting your squadron specifically for 3 months. We know about your base on asteroid K-47. We know about your supply depot near the Centauri border. We know about your contacts in the black market. Trade networks. Each piece of information hit Vextai like a physical blow. That intelligence was supposed to be classified at the highest levels. How could the humans possibly know such details about Zephyrian operations? How? He asked. Because we have been watching and learning, Chun said. Every ship you have raided. In the past year, every cargo manifest you have stolen, every communication you have sent, we have been tracking all of it. Building a complete picture of your organization. This was impossible. The Zephyrians used encrypted communication systems and hidden supply routes. Their security protocols were supposed to be unbreakable. Yet somehow the humans had penetrated their entire network. You see, Commander, Chun continued, you made one critical mistake. You assume that because humans are new to this sector, we are naive about how it works. You thought we would be easy victims who would never fight back. Effectively, your species has only been in space for a few hundred years, Vextai protested. We have been raiders for millennia, and that overconfidence is exactly why you lost, Chun replied. You kept using the same tactics, the same routes, the same methods that worked against other species. You never adapted to face human capabilities. His tactical display, Vextai could see more human ships dropping out of hyperspace around the battle zone. 3 heavy cruisers and a carrier group, all bearing the insignia of the Human Defense Force. They had been waiting nearby, ready to provide support if needed. A trap within a trap, he said quietly. Exactly, Chun confirmed. The ironclad Wanderer was bait to draw out your entire squadron. But we were prepared to handle much larger forces if necessary. This entire sector is now under human protection. The implications were staggering. The humans had not just defeated his squadron, they had claimed an entire region of space. Any Zephyrian raider who entered this area would face the same fate as his fleet. What happens to my crews? Vextai asked. That depends on them, Chun replied. Those who cooperate with our investigation will be treated as prisoners of war under human military law. They will be held until the end of hostilities and then returned to Zephyrian space. Those who resist or attempt to escape will be dealt with more harshly. Human military law. Vextai had heard rumors about human treatment of prisoners, but he had dismissed them as propaganda. Most species either killed captured enemies or sold them into slavery. The idea of actually caring for prisoners and eventually releasing them seemed absurdly wasteful. And what about me? He asked. You will be transferred to a human prison facility for detailed interrogation, Chun said. We need everything you know about Zephyrian raiding operations, supply networks, and command structures. The more you cooperate, the better your treatment. Another human shuttle was approaching his flagship. Vextai could see armed Marines visible through the craft's windows. They wore powered armor that made them look like mechanical giants. Each Marine carried weapons that appeared far more advanced than standard Zephyrian small arms. Prepare for boarding, Chun ordered. Do not resist, and no one will be hurt unnecessarily. The shuttle docked with a solid clang that echoed through the ship's hull. Within moments, Vextai could hear the sound of cutting tools as the humans breached his ship's airlock. His own crew had already powered down all weapons and defensive systems. There was no point in fighting anymore. The first human Marine to enter the bridge was enormous. The powered armor made him look like a walking tank. His helmet displayed a transparent faceplate that revealed human features, but there was nothing soft or weak about this soldier's expression. I am Sergeant Rodriguez, the Marine announced in accented Zephyrian. This ship is now under human control. All crew members will remain calm and follow instructions exactly. Anyone who attempts to resist will be subdued by force. More Marines spread through the bridge, taking control of key systems. They moved with the practiced efficiency of soldiers who had done this many times before. Each Marine knew exactly what to do and where to go without needing detailed orders. "Commander Vexthai," Sergeant Rodriguez said, "you will come with me. Captain Chun wants to speak with you in person." Vexthai looked around his bridge one last time. This ship had been his home for 8 years. He had commanded successful raids from this very spot, defeating dozens of enemy vessels. Now it was just another prize in a human victory collection. "Very well," he said quietly. The transfer to the ironclad Wanderer took 15 minutes. Vexthai was escorted through corridors that looked nothing like the crude human engineering he had expected. Everything was clean, efficient, and obviously designed by people who understood both form and function. The ship's interior was larger than it had appeared from outside. Corridors branched in multiple directions, leading to areas that had been completely hidden during the initial sensor scans. The humans had not just disguised their weapons, they had concealed the true size and capability of their entire vessel. They passed through what was clearly a Marine barracks area. Hundreds of human soldiers were visible, all wearing advanced combat gear. Many were cleaning weapons or maintaining equipment. Others were studying tactical displays that showed detailed maps of Zephyrian territory. "How many Marines do you actually carry?" Vexthai asked Sergeant Rodriguez. "Enough," the Marine replied with what might have been humor. They reached the ship's conference room, where Captain Chun was waiting. She had removed her helmet, revealing a face that was younger than Vexthai had expected. But her eyes held the hard experience of someone who had seen many battles. "Please sit down," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her. Vexthai sat, feeling strange to be treated as a guest rather than a prisoner. On the table between them was a datapad displaying star charts of the local sector. Red markers indicated the locations of destroyed or captured Zephyrian ships. "Your squadron was not the first we have defeated," Chun said, following his gaze to the display. "Over the past 6 months, we have eliminated 17 Zephyrian raiding groups. Your operation was simply the largest, 17 groups." Vexthai felt sick to his stomach. The humans had been conducting a systematic campaign against his people, and the Zephyrian High Command apparently knew nothing about it. "How many ships have you destroyed?" he asked. 143 vessels of various sizes," Chun replied matter-of-factly. "We have also captured or killed over 4,000 Zephyrian personnel. Your raiding operations in this sector are effectively finished." The numbers were devastating. In 6 months, the humans had destroyed more Zephyrian ships than had been lost in the previous 10 years of normal operations. And they had done it so quietly that the Zephyrian military leadership was completely unaware of the losses. "Your people will come looking for my squadron," Vexthai said. "When we fail to report in, they will send search parties." "We are counting on it," Ching replied with a cold smile. "Every ship they send gives us another opportunity to capture Zephyrian personnel and gather intelligence. Eventually, your commanders will realize that this sector has become a death trap for raiders." The conference room door opened, and another human officer entered. This one wore the insignia of a fleet admiral, a rank that indicated command authority over multiple battle groups. "Admiral Morrison," Chun said, standing to attention. "At ease, Captain," the admiral replied. "How did our latest operation proceed?" "Complete success, sir. We eliminated 8 enemy vessels and captured 4 more, along with their crews." "Intelligence gathering is proceeding according to plan." Admiral Morrison looked at Vexthai with the expression of someone examining an interesting but dangerous animal. "So this is the famous Commander Vexthai. Your reputation precedes you." "What reputation?" Vexthai asked. "The Butcher of Kepler Station," Morrison replied. "The raid where you killed 300 civilians because they tried to resist your demands. Did you think we would forget something like that?" Vexthai felt a chill run down his spine. That raid had been conducted over 2 years ago in a completely different sector. How could the humans possibly know about it? "We remember everything," Morrison continued. "Every civilian you have killed, every ship you have destroyed, every family you have torn apart. We have been building detailed files on every Zephyrian raider in this part of the galaxy. The admiral moved to the star chart display and pointed to various systems. Your people have been operating in human space for 3 years. You have stolen billions of credits worth of cargo and killed thousands of innocent people. You thought we were too weak and scattered to respond effectively. But you were wrong, Chun added. Humans do not forget, and we do not forgive crimes against civilians. Every raider who has killed human colonists will be hunted down and brought to justice. Morrison activated a control on the display, and the star chart zoomed out to show a much larger area. Hundreds of red markers appeared, scattered across dozens of star systems. This is the scope of our operation, he said. We are not just defending one sector. We are systematically eliminating piracy throughout this entire region of space. Your squadron was just one target among many. Vexthai stared at the display in horror. The humans were conducting military operations across a volume of space that contained dozens of inhabited systems. They were not just responding to raids, they were waging a full-scale war against piracy itself. Impossible, he whispered. You do not have enough ships? You still do not understand, Morrison said. We are not using regular military vessels for most of these operations. Ships like the ironclad Wanderer are just the visible part of our response. We have hundreds of Q-ships operating throughout this region, all disguised as civilian vessels. The implications hit Vexthai like a physical blow. Every merchant ship, every cargo hauler, every seemingly defenseless civilian vessel could be a hidden warship waiting to spring a trap. The humans had turned their entire merchant marine into a massive intelligence and military network. Your raiding days are over, Chun said quietly. And soon, your people will learn the same lesson. That you learned today, humans are not prey. We are predators, and we have been hunting you from the moment you made us your enemies. 6 months later, Commander Vexthai sat in a clean, well-lit cell aboard the human prison station orbiting Kepler Prime. Through the transparent aluminum window, he could see merchant ships coming and going from the busy trade hub below. Some of them were real cargo haulers. Others, he now knew, were Q-ships disguised as civilian vessels. The humans had kept their promise about prisoner treatment. His cell was comfortable, with decent food and access to educational materials. He had been allowed to send messages to his family on the Zephyrian homeworld. Most surprisingly, he had been given medical treatment for injuries sustained during the battle. But comfort could not ease the weight of what he had learned during his months of interrogation. The human intelligence officers had shown him reports, star charts, and communication intercepts that painted a picture of total Zephyrian defeat in this sector. In the 6 months since his capture, 47 more Zephyrian raiding groups had been destroyed or captured. The humans had eliminated over 300 pirate vessels of various sizes. The Zephyrian presence in human space had been completely eradicated. Even worse, the humans were now taking the fight to Zephyrian territory. Their Q-ships had begun appearing in previously safe systems, hunting down raiders before they could launch attacks. The Zephyrian military was scrambling to respond to a threat they still did not fully understand. "Good morning, Commander," said Dr. Sarah Kim, the human psychologist who conducted his regular interviews. She entered the cell carrying her usual datapad and coffee cup. "Dr. Kim," Vexthai replied politely. Over the months, he had developed a grudging respect for the human woman. She was intelligent, professional, and genuinely interested in understanding Zephyrian culture and motivations. "I have some news that might interest you," she said, settling into her usual chair. "The Zephyrian government has officially requested peace negotiations with the Human Federation." Vexthai felt his blood turn cold. "Peace negotiations? Apparently your military leadership has finally realized the scope of what they are facing." Dr. Kim continued. "They have lost over 600 ships in the past year. More importantly, they have lost the ability to operate safely in this entire region of space. 600 ships? The number was staggering. In less than a year, the humans had destroyed more Zephyrian vessels than had been lost in the previous century of raiding operations. The economic and military impact on his people would be devastating. What are the human terms? he asked. Complete withdrawal from all human-controlled systems, Dr. Kim replied. Payment of reparations for damages caused by raiding operations. Extradition of war criminals responsible for attacks on civilian targets. And establishment of a permanent monitoring system to prevent future raids. The terms were harsh but not unreasonable. The humans were demanding an end to piracy, not the destruction of the Zephyrian species. It was more mercy than most raiders would have received from other governments. Will your people accept these terms? Vextai asked. That depends on your government, Dr. Kim said. But I can tell you that Admiral Morrison is prepared to escalate operations significantly if the raids continue. The Q-ship program was just the beginning of our response. Vextai had learned enough about human military capabilities to find this threat deeply disturbing. If the Q-ships were considered a limited response, what would an escalated campaign look like? What would escalation mean? He asked. Dr. Kim activated her datapad and showed him a star chart. Red zones marked areas where human military forces were operating. The zones covered most of the border region between human and Zephyrian space. Phase 2 of our anti-piracy campaign, she said. Direct strikes against Zephyrian military bases and supply depots. We have identified over 40 installations that support raiding operations. All of them are now legitimate military targets. The chart showed strike plans that would cripple the Zephyrian raiding infrastructure permanently. The humans had obviously been planning this campaign for months, building detailed intelligence on every aspect of Zephyrian military operations. How did you learn so much about our defenses? Vextai asked. From prisoners like yourself, Doctor. Kim replied matter-of-factly. Over the past year, we have captured nearly 8,000 Zephyrian personnel. Most of them have been very cooperative with our intelligence-gathering efforts. 8,000 prisoners. The number represented a significant portion of the total Zephyrian raiding force. No wonder his people were requesting peace negotiations. They were facing the complete collapse of their military capability in this sector. A soft chime indicated that their interview time was ending. Dr. Kim gathered her materials and prepared to leave. Commander, she said, pausing at the cell door, I want you to understand something. This was not about revenge or conquest. It was about protection. Your people forced us to respond by attacking our civilians and stealing our resources. I understand, Vextai replied. And he did understand. Perhaps better than any other Zephyrian alive. After Dr. Kim left, Vextai returned to the window. A new ship was approaching the station, a human, heavy cruiser bearing the markings of the home fleet. Its arrival meant that high-ranking officers were coming to the station, probably for the peace negotiations. He thought about Captain Chun and the crew of the ironclad Wanderer. In the months since his capture, he had learned more about that remarkable ship and its mission. The vessel had been specifically designed to hunt pirates, with advanced weapons and sensors hidden behind a civilian disguise, but more than the technology, it was the crew that had impressed him. They had fought with a determination and skill that matched any military force he had encountered. They had shown both mercy to prisoners and ruthless efficiency against enemies. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that humans were capable of long-term planning and strategic thinking that rivaled any species in the galaxy. The door to his cell opened again, and a human guard entered. Commander Vextai, you have been requested to attend the peace negotiations as a technical advisor. Will you accept? This was unexpected. Why would your people want my advice? Because you have more experience fighting humans than any other surviving Zephyrian officer, the guard replied. Your insights might help prevent future conflicts. Vextai considered the offer. Participating in the negotiations would mean helping to end the war that had destroyed his career and his fleet. But it might also save thousands of lives on both sides. I accept, he said. 2 hours later, he found himself in a conference room aboard the human command station. Across the table sat a delegation of Zephyrian officials, including High Admiral Vexen, the supreme commander of all raiding operations. The human delegation was led by Admiral Morrison, the same officer who had questioned him months earlier. Captain Chun was also present, still wearing the uniform of a merchant marine officer despite her obvious military background. "Gentlemen," Admiral Morrison began, "we are here to discuss the terms for ending hostilities between our peoples. But first, I want to make something very clear. This is not a negotiation between equals. This is a discussion of surrender terms." High Admiral Vexen bristled at the blunt language. "The Zephyrian Defense Force has not surrendered. We are here to discuss a mutual ceasefire." "Admiral," Morrison replied calmly, "in the past 12 months you have lost over 600 ships and 8,000 personnel. Your raiding operations in this sector have been completely eliminated. Your supply bases are under constant attack. Your remaining forces are afraid to leave port. If that is not defeat, what would you call it?" The human admiral activated a holographic display that showed the current tactical situation. Red markers indicated destroyed or captured Zephyrian vessels scattered across dozens of star systems. The scope of the destruction was undeniable. "Furthermore," Morrison continued, "we have evidence linking your forces to attacks on civilian targets that constitute war crimes under galactic law. 300 civilians died in the Kepler station raid alone. Thousands more have been killed or enslaved during other operations." He gestured toward Vextai. "Commander Vextai has provided detailed information about these attacks during his interrogation. He has confirmed that targeting civilians was standard operating procedure for many raiding groups." High Admiral Vexen looked at Vextai with obvious anger. "You cooperated with the enemy?" "I told them the truth," Vextai replied quietly. "The same truth that you need to hear now. We cannot win this war. The humans are too strong, too smart, and too determined. Every day we continue fighting, more of our people die for nothing." Captain Chain spoke for the first time during the meeting. "Admiral Vexen, I want you to understand something about human psychology. We do not forget crimes against our civilians. We do not forgive attacks on innocent people. We will continue hunting your raiders until every single one is captured or destroyed." She stood and walked to the holographic display, pointing to various systems. "We currently have over 200 Q-ships operating in this region. Each one is a trap waiting for your raiders. Every merchant convoy is protected by hidden warships. Every trade route is monitored by our intelligence network. But more than that," she continued, "we are now taking the fight to your territory. Our special operations teams are already gathering intelligence on your homeworld. We know the locations of your shipyards, your command centers, your political leadership." The threat was clear. The humans were not just defending themselves anymore, they were preparing to strike at the heart of Zephyrian civilization if the raids continued. "What are your terms?" High Admiral Vexen asked, his voice defeated. Admiral Morrison placed a datapad on the table. "Complete withdrawal from all human systems within 30 days. Payment of 50 billion credits in reparations over 10 years. Extradition of all personnel responsible for attacks on civilian targets. Dismantling of all raiding infrastructure. And acceptance of permanent human monitoring stations in your territory." The terms were harsh, but Vextai recognized them as the price of military defeat. His people had gambled everything on their ability to prey on human weakness. They had lost that gamble completely. "And if we refuse?" Vexen asked. "Then we will destroy every Zephyrian military installation within 500 light-years of human space," Morrison replied. "We have already identified the targets and prepared the strike plans. The choice is yours." High Admiral Vexen looked around the table at his advisors. Vextai could see the defeat in their eyes. They all knew that continued resistance meant the destruction of their civilization. "We accept your terms," Vexon said finally. 3 months later, Vextai stood on the observation deck of a human transport ship, watching his homeworld grow larger through the viewport. He was being repatriated along with other prisoners as part of the peace agreement. The war was over. The Zephyrian raiding fleets had been disbanded. The captured ships and bases had been turned over to human authorities. His people were learning to survive without the wealth stolen from other species. But the galaxy had learned something more important. Humanity had announced its presence as a major power, one that would protect its citizens and interests with overwhelming force when necessary. The age of easy raids on human shipping was over forever. As the transport ship entered the atmosphere of his homeworld, Vexthai thought about Captain Chun and her crew. They had taught the galaxy a lesson that would not be forgotten. Humans might appear peaceful and naive, but when cornered and threatened, they fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They fought like predators who refused to become prey. The stars looked different through the viewing window of the alien ship. Ambassador Velther pressed his long, thin fingers against the clear surface and watched the small yellow sun grow larger with each passing hour. His silver eyes reflected the light from this new star system that his people had discovered just 2 months ago. "Ambassador, we are receiving more radio signals from the third planet," said Communications Officer Zindar from her station. Her voice was soft and musical, like all members of the Kethmoran race. "The signals are getting stronger. There is definitely intelligent life down there," Velther nodded slowly. After 3,000 years of space travel, his people had met 847 different species. Each first contact had gone the same way. They would arrive peacefully, share their knowledge, and welcome another species into the Galactic Harmony Coalition. It was always the same. The new species would be afraid at first, then curious, then grateful to join the galaxy-wide family of peaceful worlds. "What kind of signals are they sending?" Velther asked. "Simple radio waves, mostly," Zindar replied. "Music, talking, and what looks like moving pictures. Very basic technology. They seem to use electromagnetic waves for almost everything. No quantum communication systems, no faster-than-light signals. They are probably just starting to explore their own star system." Velther smiled. Young species were always the most interesting. They had so much energy and curiosity. The Kethmorans remembered when they were young too, sending their first radio signals into space and wondering if anyone was listening. "Any signs of space travel?" he asked. "Yes, Ambassador. We can see small objects moving around their planet. Some kind of space stations and what look like mining operations on their moon. Very simple stuff. Maybe they have been in space for 50 or 60 of their years." Perfect, thought Velther. This species was at exactly the right stage for first contact. Old enough to understand that other life existed, but young enough to be amazed by what the galaxy had to offer. The bridge of the gentle current was a peaceful place. Soft blue and green lights pulsed slowly along the walls, creating a calm feeling. That helped everyone think clearly. The ship itself was beautiful, with smooth curves and flowing lines that made it look more like a living creature than a machine. Every part of the ship was designed to look friendly and non-threatening. "Captain Mortis, please slow our approach," Velther said to the ship's captain. "We do not want to scare them." "Begin standard first contact protocols." Captain Mortis was older than Velther, with gray streaks running through the silver skin on his head. He had been part of 43 first contact missions and knew exactly what to do. "Of course, Ambassador. Reducing speed to 1/4. All ships in the fleet are following our lead." Velther looked out at the other 11 ships that traveled with them. Each one was just as beautiful as the gentle current, with the same flowing lines and soft, pulsing lights. The whole fleet looked like a group of gentle sea creatures swimming through space. Each ship carried the best people from dozens of different species. There were language experts who could learn any new way of speaking in just a few days. There were cultural specialists who understood how different species thought and acted. There were scientists who could study any new technology. And most importantly, there were gift bearers who carried examples of the most wonderful things the galaxy had to offer. "Zindar, begin broadcasting the standard peace signals," Velther ordered. "Yes, Ambassador." Sending mathematical sequences, prime numbers, and universal symbols for peace on all radio frequencies. This was how it always began. Mathematics was the same everywhere in the universe. Any intelligent species would recognize prime numbers and simple equations. After that came pictures showing peaceful meetings between different species. Then came basic language lessons to help the new species understand that the visitors wanted to be friends. Velther had done this so many times that he could almost predict exactly how the new species would react. First would come confusion, then fear, then careful attempts to communicate back. Finally, curiosity would win and the new species would welcome them. "Ambassador," said Science Officer Kelvin from his station near the back of the bridge, "our long-range sensors are picking up some interesting readings from this system." "What kind of readings?" "The third planet has one large moon, but there are also thousands of small objects in orbit around the planet. Some look natural, like rocks and ice, but many of them look artificial, made by intelligence." "Space stations and satellites," Valther said. "That is normal for a species at this level." "Yes, but there are so many of them, and some of the larger objects are moving in patterns that suggest they might be ships of some kind." Valther was not worried. Young species always built many small ships before they learned to build fewer, better ones. The Kethmorans had done the same thing thousands of years ago. "Any weapons detected?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. In 3,000 years, the Kethmorans had never met a species that kept weapons after they developed space. Travel, war was something that happened on planets. Once a species reached the stars, they realized that cooperation was much more useful than fighting. "Nothing that looks like weapons, Ambassador. Just ships and stations and satellites." "Good. Continue the approach." What Velther did not know was that his ships had been detected weeks ago. Deep in the outer part of the star system, hidden among the asteroids, something was watching them. The humans had been tracking the alien fleet since their ships first appeared on the edge of the solar system, Earth's most powerful telescopes. And sensors were pointed at the 12 strange objects moving slowly toward the inner planets. Every government on Earth knew about them. Every military commander was watching and waiting. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Terra and studied the data streaming across her screens. The alien ships were beautiful, but they were also completely unknown. In all of human history, no one had ever seen anything like them. "Admiral, the alien fleet is still moving toward Earth," reported Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez from the sensor station. "Current speed suggests they will reach Earth orbit in 72 hours. Any response to our monitoring signals?" Chun asked. "No, ma'am. They have not changed course or speed. They are ignoring our deep space sensors completely." Chun nodded grimly. The Wrath of Terra was hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, completely invisible to the alien sensors. The massive warship was humanity's newest and most powerful vessel, built in secret over the past 10 years. It was 5 kilometers long and bristled with enough weapons to destroy anything humanity had ever imagined fighting, but these aliens were not anything humanity had imagined. "What do the intelligence reports say about their intentions?" Chun asked. "Unknown, Admiral. They have been broadcasting what looks like mathematical sequences and some kind of pictures, but our codebreakers have not figured out what they mean yet. The broadcasts seem peaceful, but we cannot be sure." Chun had read every report about the alien ships. They looked peaceful. They moved slowly and carefully. Their broadcast seemed friendly, but Admiral Chun had not become the commander of humanity's most powerful warship by trusting appearances. Humanity's history was full of wars. Humans had fought each other for thousands of years over land, resources, religion, and power. Only in the last century had the nations of Earth finally learned to work together, and even then it was mostly because they had to cooperate to survive in space. The solar defense command had been created just 50 years ago when humans first reached the stars and realized that space was vast and dangerous. There could be anything out there: hostile aliens, deadly diseases, or worse. Earth needed to be protected. "Any word from Earth Command?" Chun asked. "The Global Council is still debating, Admiral. Half want to try peaceful contact. Half want us to be ready for anything." Chun understood both sides. Part of her hoped these aliens were friendly visitors who wanted to share knowledge and culture. That would be wonderful for humanity. But another part of her, the part that had spent 30 years in the military, knew that hope was not enough to protect Earth's 8 billion people. Keep monitoring their approach. If they change course toward Earth or if they do anything that looks threatening, I want to know immediately. Yes, Admiral. Far away, Ambassador Velther had no idea that he was being watched by creatures who had spent their entire history preparing for war. To him, this was just another peaceful first contact with another young species who would soon join the galactic community. Zindar, have we received any response to our broadcasts? He asked. Not yet, Ambassador, but that is normal. Young species need time to understand what they are seeing. True, how much longer until we reach the 4th planet? 6 more hours. Ambassador, once we are there, we can begin more detailed scans of their home planet and get a better understanding of their technology level. Excellent. Begin preparing the cultural analysis team. I want to understand these new people as quickly as possible. The bridge crew worked quietly and efficiently. Everyone knew their job. In a few days, they would be greeting a new member of the galactic family. In a few months, this species would have teachers and scientists helping them learn about the galaxy. In a few years, their young people would be traveling to other worlds and making friends with hundreds of different species. It was always the same. It was always wonderful. Ambassador Velther looked out at the stars and smiled. Soon, the galaxy would have 848 peaceful species instead of 847. Soon, another world would know that they were not alone in the universe. He had no way of knowing that the species he was approaching had never known peace. He could not imagine that these creatures had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. And he would never have believed that their first response to unknown visitors would be to hide their most powerful weapons and prepare for battle. The two fleets moved slowly toward each other through the dark of space. One carried gifts and knowledge and hope for a peaceful future. The other carried enough weapons to burn worlds and the willingness to use them if necessary. Neither side understood the other. Neither side knew what was about to happen. In a few hours, everything would change forever. The alien fleet reached the 4th planet exactly when Ambassador Velther predicted. The red world that the humans called Mars hung in space before them, cold and empty. But it was not the red planet that interested the Kethmorans. It was the small blue and green world that spun slowly beyond it. Ambassador, we are now close enough to begin detailed scans of the 3rd planet, Science Officer Kelvin reported. His long fingers moved across his control panel, activating the most powerful sensors the Galactic Harmony Coalition had ever built. Begin standard survey protocols, Velther ordered. I want to know everything about this species before we make contact. The scanning beams reached out from all 12 ships in the fleet. Invisible waves of energy swept across Earth's surface, penetrating the atmosphere, mapping the oceans, counting the cities, and measuring the level of technology the humans had achieved. To the Kethmorans, this was routine. They had scanned 847 worlds before this one. The energy beams were completely harmless. They were designed to gather information, not to damage anything. The scans would tell them where the major population centers were located, what kind of energy the humans used, how advanced their medicine was, and what level of space travel they had achieved. To the humans watching from Earth, the scans looked very different. Sir, we are detecting massive energy readings from the alien fleet, reported Sergeant Williams from his position at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Colorado. They are scanning our entire planet with some kind of high-powered beams. Colonel Martinez leaned over the sensor displays, his face grim. 20 years in the military had taught him to recognize targeting scans when he saw them. Are they focusing on anything specific? Yes, sir. They are paying special attention to our major cities, our military bases, and our orbital installations. The scans are very detailed. They are mapping everything. Colonel Martinez felt his stomach tighten. In human military doctrine, detailed scanning of enemy positions meant only one thing: target acquisition. The aliens were preparing to attack. Get me a direct line to Solar Defense Command, he ordered. Priority Alpha. Within minutes, the information was racing through military communication networks around the globe. Earth's leaders gathered in emergency sessions. Military commanders studied the data and came to the same conclusion that Colonel Martinez had reached. The aliens were preparing for an attack. Admiral Chun received the report while standing on the bridge of the Wrath of Terra. She read the data twice, hoping she was wrong, but the evidence was clear. The alien ships were conducting the same kind of detailed reconnaissance that human forces used before major military operations. "Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, what is the status of our weapons systems?" she asked. "All systems ready, Admiral. We can engage all 12 targets simultaneously if necessary." Chun nodded but did not give the order to fire, not yet. There was still a chance this was a misunderstanding, but humanity could not afford to wait too long to find out. On Earth, President Hassan of the Global Council stared at the reports coming in from military commanders around the world. Every expert was telling her the same thing. The alien scans looked exactly like pre-attack reconnaissance. "General Thompson, what are our options?" she asked. General Thompson was Earth's highest-ranking military officer, a man who had spent 40 years preparing for threats from space. "Madam President, we have to assume hostile intent. If these aliens are planning to attack, we need to be ready to defend ourselves." "But what if they are peaceful?" asked Dr. Park, Earth's leading expert on interstellar communication. "What if these scans are just their way of learning about us?" "Then they should have asked permission first," General Thompson replied grimly. "You don't scan someone's military installations unless you plan to attack them." President Hassan looked around the room at her advisors. Half wanted to try to communicate with the aliens, half wanted to prepare for war. She had to make a decision that could affect the future of the entire human race. "Send a message to Admiral Chun," she finally said. "Tell her to prepare for defensive action, but not to fire unless the aliens make an obviously hostile move." Meanwhile, the Kethmoran fleet continued their scans, completely unaware of the fear and confusion they were causing. Ambassador Velther studied the data as it came in, fascinated by what he was learning about this new species. "This is remarkable," he said to Captain Mortis. "They have developed space travel much faster than most species. Look at these orbital installations. They have built hundreds of satellites and space stations in just a few decades. Their cities are very large, too," Captain Mortis observed. "Over 8 billion individuals on one planet. That is much higher than normal for a pre-contact species." "And look at their energy usage," added Science Officer Kelvin. "They burn fossil fuels, use nuclear power, and have built solar collection systems, very diverse energy sources. These people are quite advanced for such a young species." Ambassador Velther was pleased. Advanced young species were always easier to integrate into the galactic community. They understood technology and were usually eager to learn more. "Any signs of weapons?" he asked, though he knew the answer would be no. "Nothing significant," Kelvin replied. "Some primitive projectile systems and basic energy weapons, but nothing that could threaten a spaceship. Typical defensive systems for a planet-bound species." What the Kethmoran sensors could not detect were the weapon systems hidden throughout the solar system. Human technology was different from anything the aliens had seen before. Earth's weapons were designed to be hidden, to strike without warning, and to destroy completely. The Wrath of Terra remained invisible in the asteroid belt. Its advanced stealth systems making it look like just another piece of space rock. Around Earth, dozens of orbital defense platforms powered up their weapons, but kept them hidden behind false sensor readings. On the Moon, the surface of Lunar Base Alpha opened to reveal missile silos that had been built deep underground. Humanity had learned long ago that the best defense was the one your enemy never saw coming. "Ambassador, communications officer," Zindar said suddenly, "I am receiving a transmission from the planet." Velther turned quickly. "Already?" "That is faster than usual. What are they saying? It is difficult to understand." "They are using very simple radio signals, and their language is completely unknown. But the mathematical structure suggests they are trying to communicate." "Excellent. Begin response protocols." Send them our standard friendship messages. What Zindar did not tell the ambassador was that she was also detecting much more complex signals coming from the planet. Hidden beneath the simple radio transmissions were encrypted military communications that her systems could not decode. The humans were talking to each other in secret while sending basic messages to the aliens. To a species that had known only peace for thousands of years, the idea of secret military communications was almost impossible to understand. The Kethmorans assumed all intelligent species were honest and open like themselves on Earth. The first alien response message was being analyzed by teams of scientists and codebreakers. Dr. Elizabeth Carter, head of the Xenolinguistics department at the International Space University, stared at the patterns on her screen. "It is definitely some kind of language," she reported to the Global Council. "Mathematical sequences, followed by what looks like pictures, followed by sounds that might be words." "What do the pictures show?" President Hassan asked. "Different species shaking hands, or what looks like shaking hands, images of planets connected by lines, stars arranged in peaceful patterns. If I had to guess, I would say they are trying to tell us they are friendly. Or they could be showing us the planets they have conquered," General Thompson said darkly. "Those lines between planets could be invasion routes." Dr. Carter shook her head. "General, with respect, I think you are being too suspicious. These messages look peaceful to me." "Doctor, with respect, peaceful messages are exactly what I would send if I wanted to catch an enemy off guard." The debate continued for hours while the alien fleet moved closer to Earth. Every minute that passed increased the tension. The aliens continued their detailed scans, and human military forces continued to prepare for battle. The breaking point came when communications specialist Jenkins at the Orbital Defense Station made a critical mistake. Jenkins had been working for 18 hours straight, monitoring alien transmissions and trying to decode their language. He was tired, nervous, and operating on too much caffeine and too little sleep. When the aliens began a new type of scan, more intense than the previous ones, Jenkins panicked. Instead of sending the carefully prepared first contact message that Earth's leaders had spent hours writing, Jenkins accidentally activated the military emergency broadcast system. In one terrible second, he transmitted humanity's complete orbital defense grid locations, weapon system specifications, and emergency military protocols directly to the alien fleet. The message that reached the Kethmorans was not, "We come in peace" or "Welcome to our solar system." Instead, it was a detailed list of every weapon pointed at them, every defense system ready to fire, and every military unit prepared to attack. Ambassador Velther stared at his translation screen in complete shock. The message was very clear despite being in an unknown language. The humans were not sending greetings or expressions of curiosity. They were sending a threat. "Captain," he said quietly, "are you seeing this?" Captain Mortis read the message and felt his silver skin turn pale. "Ambassador, they are telling us exactly how they plan to destroy our ships." "But why would they do that? We have done nothing hostile." "Perhaps this is how their species communicates. Perhaps they believe that showing their weapons will make us respect their strength." But both officers knew that was not true. No peaceful species would respond to first contact by listing their weapons and defense systems. The humans were clearly preparing for war. "Zindar, send a response immediately," Velther ordered. "Tell them we are peaceful. Use every method we have to make them understand we do not want to fight." While the Kethmorans frantically broadcast peace messages, Jenkins realized his terrible mistake. He stared at his communication console in horror, knowing that he had just sent humanity's most sensitive military secrets to unknown aliens. "Sir," he said to his supervisor, his voice shaking, "I think I made an error." Within minutes, Admiral Chun received word of the mistake. She stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Terra and felt the weight of 8 billion human lives on her shoulders. The aliens now knew about humanity's weapons and defenses. If they were hostile, they would use that information to plan their attack. "Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, move us to attack position," she ordered. "If the aliens are going to use our defense information against us, we need to strike first." "Admiral, are you sure?" The aliens have not made any hostile moves. They have conducted detailed reconnaissance of our planet, and now they have our complete defense protocols. In my experience, that means they are preparing to attack. The Wrath of Terra began moving out of the asteroid belt toward the alien fleet. The massive warship's engines came online, and its weapon systems powered up to full readiness. Admiral Chun opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. Her message was short and clear. Unknown vessels, you have conducted unauthorized scans of our world and have obtained classified military information. You have 10 minutes to explain your intentions, or you will be considered hostile. The message reached the Kethmoran fleet, just as Ambassador Velther was trying to send his own peace message. When he heard the human admiral's words, translated by his ship's computer, he felt something he had never experienced before in 3,000 years of peaceful first contacts: fear. These humans were not like any species the Kethmorans had ever met. They were suspicious, aggressive, and ready for war. Everything about them suggested a species that had learned to shoot first and ask questions later. "Captain, we need to withdraw immediately," Velther said. "These humans are not ready for contact with galactic civilization." "Agreed, Ambassador. All ships prepare to retreat." But it was too late. The damage had already been done. Misunderstanding had replaced communication. Fear had replaced curiosity. And somewhere in the dark between the two fleets, the future of galactic peace was slipping away with every passing second. The Wrath of Terra emerged from the asteroid belt like a nightmare made real. As the massive human warship powered up its engines and began moving toward the Kethmoran fleet, every sensor on every alien ship began screaming warnings that their operators had never seen before. Science Officer Kelvin stared at his instruments in complete disbelief. "Ambassador, you need to see this immediately. The readings I am getting cannot be correct." Ambassador Velther rushed to the science station, his silver eyes wide with concern. "What are you detecting?" "A ship, Ambassador. But it is unlike anything in our database. It is massive, 5 kilometers long. The energy readings suggest power generation capabilities that are beyond our understanding." Velther looked at the main viewing screen as the computer enhanced the image of the approaching human vessel. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. The Wrath of Terra was a monument to warfare. Where Kethmoran ships had smooth, flowing curves that suggested peace and harmony, the human ship was all sharp angles and brutal efficiency. Its hull was dark gray metal, scarred and reinforced with layers of armor that spoke of a species that expected to be shot at and wanted to survive. The ship's surface was covered with weapons, hundreds of them. Gun turrets, missile launchers, energy projectors, and systems that the Kethmoran computers could not even identify. The entire vessel looked like it had been designed by creatures who understood only one thing: how to destroy other ships completely. "This cannot be real," Captain Mortis whispered as he joined them at the science station. "No peaceful species builds ships like this." "Ambassador," Communications Officer Zindar called from her station, "I am receiving another transmission from the human ship." The voice that came through the speakers was cold and controlled. Admiral Chen spoke in clear, simple words that the Kethmoran translation computers had no trouble understanding. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Earth Defense Force. You have conducted unauthorized reconnaissance of our homeworld and obtained classified military information. You will explain your intentions immediately or be considered hostile." Velther felt his hands shaking. In 3,000 years of first contact missions, no species had ever threatened him. The very idea was almost impossible to understand. How could an intelligent species choose violence over communication? "Zindar, send our strongest peace signals. Use every language protocol we have. They must understand that we mean no harm." "I am trying, Ambassador, but they are not responding to any of our standard diplomatic communications." On the bridge of the Wrath of Terra, Admiral Chun watched the alien fleet through her tactical display. Her weapons officer, Commander Jackson, provided a running analysis of the alien ships. "Admiral, the alien vessels appear to be completely unarmed. I am detecting no weapon systems, no armor, no shields." They are basically flying laboratories and conference rooms. That could be a trick, Chun replied. Hidden weapons, stealth systems, something we cannot detect. Negative, Admiral. Our sensors are very thorough. These ships are not built for combat. They could not fight off a single human patrol boat, much less a Titan-class warship. Chun frowned. If the aliens were truly unarmed, why had they conducted such detailed scans of Earth? Why had they obtained humanity's defense protocols? Nothing about this situation made sense. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez reported from the sensor station, the alien ships are backing away from us. They appear to be trying to retreat, maintain pursuit course. I want answers before they leave our solar system. What Chin did not understand was that the Kethmoran retreat was not tactical. It was pure terror. Ambassador Velther had never seen anything like the human warship, and everything about it screamed danger to his peaceful mind. Captain, how fast can we reach the edge of the system? Velther asked. At maximum speed, 6 hours, Ambassador? But our engines were not designed for emergency retreats. We may suffer mechanical problems if we push them too hard. Do it anyway. These humans are not like any species we have encountered. Science Officer Kelvin continued studying the sensor readings from the human ship. What he found made the situation even more terrifying. Ambassador, the human vessel is not straining its systems at all. Our computers estimate that it is operating at perhaps 20% of its maximum capability. What does that mean? It means that what we are seeing is just a small taste of what this ship can do. If they wanted to destroy our entire fleet, they could do it without any effort at all. The truth was even worse than Kelvin realized. The Wrath of Terra was not just powerful, it was efficient. Every system on the ship had been designed and tested in humanity's long history of warfare. The weapons were precise, the targeting systems were flawless. The armor could withstand attacks that would vaporize Kethmoran ships. Admiral Chun studied the tactical situation and made her decision. The aliens were trying to run, but they were not running fast enough. If they were hostile, they could escape, report back to their fleet, and return with reinforcements. Earth could not afford to let potential enemies leave with detailed information about human defenses. All weapons target the late alien vessel, she ordered. Admiral, are you certain? Commander Jackson asked. They appear to be retreating. They have our defense protocols, Commander. I cannot let them escape with that information. The Wrath of Terra's targeting systems locked onto the gentle current. 12 separate weapon systems acquired the alien flagship simultaneously. Energy readings spiked as the human ship prepared to fire. On the Kethmoran ship, every alarm started screaming at once. Ambassador, the human ship has targeted us with multiple weapons, Kelvin reported, his voice shaking with fear. Their targeting locks are perfect. We cannot escape. Velther closed his eyes and tried to think. Everything about this situation was wrong. First contact was supposed to be peaceful. It was supposed to be the beginning of friendship between species. Instead, he was staring at the most powerful warship he had ever seen, and it was preparing to destroy his ship. Open a channel to the human vessel, he ordered. All frequencies, maximum power. Channel open, Ambassador. Velther spoke directly to Admiral Chun, his words carrying 3,000 years of diplomatic experience and the desperate hope that peace could still be achieved. Admiral Chun of Earth, I am Ambassador Velther of the Kethmoran people and the Galactic Harmony Coalition. We come to your system in peace. We mean no harm to you or your species. We have come only to welcome you to the galactic community. Please, there has been a misunderstanding. Chun listened to the translation of the alien message. Part of her wanted to believe it. The alien sounded sincere. But her military training told her not to trust appearances. Ambassador Velther, if you come in peace, why did you scan our planet without permission? Why did you map our cities and military installations? And why did you request our defense protocols? Velther felt confusion replaces fear. Admiral, we conducted standard scientific surveys to learn about your species. This is normal procedure for first contact. We did not request any military information. We were trying to send messages of peace and friendship. You received detailed information about our orbital defense systems and weapon locations. You claiming that was an accident? Now Velthor understood. Somehow, the humans had accidentally sent him their military secrets instead of a diplomatic message. But the human admiral thought the Kethmorans had asked for that information. Admiral John, there has been a terrible mistake. We did not ask for your military information. You sent it to us by accident? We have already deleted all of it from our systems. We do not want your secrets. We only want to be friends. But Chun was beyond listening to explanations. In her experience, enemies who obtained your defense plans did not voluntarily delete them. They used them to plan attacks. Ambassador Velthor, I want to believe you. But I cannot risk the safety of Earth based on words alone. You will surrender your ships for inspection, or you will be destroyed. The ultimatum hit the Kethmoran bridge like a physical blow. Captain Mortis turned to Ambassador Velthor, with silver eyes wide with shock. Ambassador, they want us to surrender our ships. In 3,000 years, no species has ever made such a demand. Velthor felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Every first contact mission had been successful. Every species had joined the galactic community peacefully. But this species was different. These humans thought like warriors, not like explorers. Admiral Chun, he said carefully, we cannot surrender our ships. They contain information about hundreds of peaceful species. We cannot risk that information falling into the wrong hands. Chun heard the refusal and made her final decision. The aliens would not surrender. They had Earth's defense information, and they were trying to escape. In her mind, that left only one option. All ships, prepare to fire. Target their engines first. I want them disabled, not destroyed. But the Kethmoran ships were not built like human vessels. They had no armor, no redundant systems, no battle. Damage control. A shot to their engines would likely destroy the entire ship. Admiral, Commander Jackson said quietly, our intelligence about their ship design is limited. We do not know if they can survive engine damage. Then they should have surrendered when I gave them the chance. The moment stretched out like an eternity. Two species faced each other across the darkness of space, each one convinced that the other was a threat. The Kethmorans saw humans as violent monsters who threatened peaceful exploration. The humans saw the Kethmorans as potential invaders who had obtained critical defense information. Neither side understood the other. Neither side wanted to fight. But both sides were terrified of what would happen if they showed weakness. Ambassador Velthor made one last desperate attempt at peace. Admiral Chun, before you fire, please understand what you are about to do. We represent 847 peaceful species. If you attack us, you will not just be fighting the Kethmorans. You will be making enemies of half the galaxy, Chun paused. 847 species? That was far more than Earth's intelligence services had ever imagined. But it was too late to change course now. Ambassador, I am sorry, but I cannot risk Earth based on promises from strangers. The words were barely out of her mouth when her weapons officer reported a new development. Admiral, the alien ships are deploying some kind of structures from their hulls. On the main screen, Chun watched as beautiful metallic arrays unfolded. From each Kethmoran ship, the structures looked like metal flowers blooming in space, delicate and artistic and completely unknown. Are those weapons? She asked. Unknown, Admiral. They do not match any weapon system in our database. Ambassador Velthor had ordered the deployment of the ceremonial greeting arrays as a final gesture of peace, to the Kethmorans extending. The greeting arrays was the ultimate sign of trust and friendship. It left their ships completely vulnerable but showed their total commitment to peaceful contact. Admiral Chung saw unknown devices deploying from alien ships that had already proven they could not be trusted. Her tactical training took over, and she made the decision that would change the galaxy forever. All weapons fire. The railgun round left the Wrath of Terra at nearly 20% the speed of light. It was a single projectile no bigger than a human fist, but it carried more kinetic energy than any weapon the Kethmorans had ever imagined. The round covered the distance between the human warship and the alien fleet in less than 3 seconds, Ambassador. Velther saw a brief flash of light on his viewing screen. Then the gentle current, the flagship of the Kethmoran fleet, simply ceased to exist. The alien ship did not explode like vessels in human movies. It did not burn or break apart slowly. The railgun round passed through the ship's hull as if it were made of paper, creating a hole that went from the front of the vessel to the back in a perfect straight line. The sudden decompression and structural failure caused the entire ship to tear itself apart in seconds. 200 Kethmoran souls, including Captain Mortis and dozens of cultural experts who had been preparing gifts for humanity, were gone before they even knew they were under attack. "Admiral," Commander Jackson reported from his weapons station, his voice shaking slightly. "Direct hit on the lead alien vessel. Target destroyed." Admiral Chun watched the debris field that had once been an alien ship spreading slowly through space. Part of her felt sick at what she had just done. But the larger part, the part trained by 30 years of military service, was already thinking about the next threat. "Status of remaining alien vessels?" she asked. 11 ships remaining, Admiral. They appear to be in complete shock. No movement, no weapons deployment, no communication attempts. That was not entirely true. On the remaining Kethmoran ships, there was plenty of communication, but it was not the kind of communication that human sensors could detect. It was the sound of an entire species learning that the universe was not the peaceful place they had believed it to be on the bridge of the swift current. Captain Zimtar stared at the empty space where the gentle current had been just moments before. Her silver skin had turned completely white with shock, and her hands trembled as she tried to understand what had just happened. "Science officer," she whispered, "what kind of weapon was that?" Science Officer Dalvin worked frantically at his instruments, trying to analyze the attack. "Captain, it appears to have been a kinetic projectile. Solid matter accelerated to an incredible velocity, but the energy levels required to achieve such speed are beyond our technology." "How long did the attack take?" "From the moment we detected the weapon firing to the moment the gentle current was destroyed, approximately 2.7 seconds. Captain Zimtar felt her world collapse around her. In less than 3 seconds, the humans had casually destroyed the most advanced ship in the Kethmoran fleet. They had done it without apparent effort, without strain on their systems, and without hesitation. "Communications officer, are we receiving any signals from the human ship?" "Yes, Captain. They are transmitting on all frequencies." "The message is very simple. Surrender immediately or you will be destroyed." The remaining Kethmoran ships floated in space like frightened animals. None of them had weapons. None of them had armor thick enough to stop a human railgun round. They were explorers and diplomats facing a predator that had evolved from millions of years of warfare on Earth. The destruction of the alien ship was being watched by every government and military organization on the planet. President Hassan stared at the tactical display in the war room beneath the Global Council building, her face pale with shock. "General Thompson, did Admiral Chun have authorization to fire?" General Thompson nodded grimly. "Yes, Madam President. Standing orders allow fleet commanders to engage hostile forces that threaten Earth security. The aliens had our defense protocols and were refusing to surrender, but they said they came in peace. They also said they represented 847 species, ma'am. If even half of those species are as advanced as these aliens, Earth could be facing an invasion fleet that we cannot possibly defeat. Admiral Chun made the right choice." Dr. Park, who had been advocating for peaceful contact, sat in stunned silence. She had spent her entire career preparing for the day when humanity would meet other intelligent species. She had always imagined it would be wonderful, a moment of joy and discovery. Instead, it had become a nightmare of misunderstanding and violence. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now we prepare for war," General Thompson replied. "The aliens know where we are, and they know we can defend ourselves. The question is whether they will try to seek revenge or if they will leave us alone." On the Wrath of Tara, Admiral Chun studied the tactical situation. The remaining alien ships had stopped moving and were broadcasting surrender signals, but she could not afford to trust them. One ship had been destroyed, but 11 remained. If even one of them escaped and reported back to their fleet, Earth could face retaliation from hundreds of hostile species. Commander Jackson, what is the status of our weapon systems? All systems operating normally, Admiral. We have sufficient ammunition to destroy the remaining alien vessels if necessary. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez interrupted. I am receiving multiple communications from the alien ships. They are broadcasting in dozens of different languages, but the translation computers are having some success. What are they saying? They are begging us not to fire again, Admiral. They are offering to share their technology, their knowledge, everything they have if we will just let them leave. Shion felt a moment of doubt. The aliens sounded genuinely terrified. But fear could be faked, and desperate enemies were often the most dangerous. Any signs of reinforcements? Other ships coming to help them? Negative, Admiral. Long-range sensors show no other vessels in the system. Admiral Chung made her decision. Signal the alien ships. Tell them they have one chance to prove their peaceful intentions. They will transfer all their data about the 800 species. They mentioned they will provide detailed information about their technology, and they will submit to